We were a small spark that reignited a national debate and discussion on voting rights in America.
There's a number of ways Congress has in the past and could in the future protect voting rights. Right now, Democrats are proposing a very broad law that touches on voting rights, campaign finance reform, ethics in government, called the For the People Act.
The bill is passed.
This particular piece of legislation, the For the People Act, existed even before 2020 and President Trump's efforts to delegitimize the election, make false claims of a stolen election, which prompted in 2021 several state legislatures to change their voting laws to make them more restrictive, crack down on early voting, crack down on mail voting, roll back some of the opportunities that voters had.
Just hours ago, Governor Doug Ducey signed a controversial election bill.
Governor DeSantis signing a controversial elections bill into law today.
There is a lot packed into this piece of legislation. Pressure is growing on Congress to take action and get something done on voting rights.
Our voting rights are at stake. There's a concerted assault across this nation to suppress the votes of people of color. I mean, literally, we're relying on Congress to provide that coverage for us.
The Senate is expected to take a procedural vote in hopes of advancing it, passing it into law for President Biden's signature.
I've taken a look at all these new state laws. None of them are designed to suppress the vote. There is no rational basis for the federal government trying to take over all of American elections.
The problem is that Republicans are uniformly opposing it.
All Republicans, I think, will oppose that.
I believe the Senate will reject this bill.
It's not a For the People Act. It is welfare for politicians.
The advocacy community has been very clear in saying that they're both necessary. The For the People Act basically sets minimum standards for elections. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is a little different. What that's meant to do is to restore a process of federal review that had been in place prior to 2013.
What this means is those states that are covered, they're mostly in the South, right now are not going to have to get this pre-approval before they make changes in their voting requirements.
We have seen exactly what we feared when that case came down in 2013. Because that case was an opening of a door to allow states to do what otherwise we had protected against.
Under the Voting Rights Act in 1965, that was targeted specifically to jurisdictions that had documented histories of racial discrimination in voting. The Supreme Court overturned that portion of the Voting Rights Act in 2013. And Congress, Democrats in Congress in particular have been trying to reestablish that ever since. But that would only reestablish that federal review process prospectively in the future. It would not go back and overturn some of these laws that have already been passed by Republican legislatures in the individual states.
I hear that they say everything is big in Texas. They say that. And it's no different than the violation of constitutional rights.
Senate Democrat Joe Manchin is proposing a compromise, which includes doing away with things like same-day voting registration, but allowing voter ID requirements.
I've been working across the aisle with all the Republicans trying to get people to understand that that's the bedrock of our democracy. An accessible, fair, and basically secured voting.
Manchin has tried to get some Republicans involved in this conversation too, but he hasn't been especially successful with that so far.
We hope we can get bipartisan support. So far, we have not seen any glimmers on S1, and if we don't, everything's going to be on the table.
In the Senate, even if you have the majority, due to the filibuster rule, you need at least some Republicans to join you if you want to pass a law. There's no indication there's anywhere near 10 Republicans amenable to even what Senator Manchin proposed.
This bill isn't about strengthening democracy. This bill is about strengthening Democrats.
The line that Senator McConnell has drawn is that the federal government simply should not be involved in dictating how states run their elections. And as long as that continues to be his view and the view of the vast majority of his conference, then he's going to, Democrats are going to have really no real path to passing federal legislation on this.